The documentary opens on the intense atmosphere of the 1994 Australian Grand Prix, the final race of the season set to decide the Formula One World Championship. The driver in contention, Damon Hill, reflects that all his life people have expected him to be a racing driver like his late great father Graham Hill, a double world champion. Despite his personal reluctance, Damon is 1 point away from achieving the same title, feeling he's trying to get back to the start, to the place where everything went off the rails. The race begins and almost immediately Damon Hill is out of the Grand Prix, the World Championship torn from his hands. The film then backtracks to Damon's youth and the meeting of his future wife Georgie. He's described as a complicated, sad person beneath a joking exterior. Damon loved motorbikes and initially pursued racing on two wheels, feeling a sense of freedom there, but he knew he would always be compared to his father. He admired Graham's determination, noting that while he hoped he inherited some of his talent, determination wasn't inherited. Georgie recalls a moving moment 6 months into their relationship when Damon, suddenly pulling up outside a churchyard, broke down in tears at his father's grave the first time he'd mentioned him. Graham Hill, a formidable driver who won the Monaco Grand Prix 5 times, gave the family a taste of the high life. Graham's philosophy was to make the most of every second of life due to the inherent dangers of motor racing. When Damon was 15, Graham announced his retirement from full-time racing to focus on his own team, Embassy Racing. This brought relief to the family, who had lived in fear of him being killed. Tragically, 6 months later, while Damon and his sister were watching TV, a news flash reported that Graham Hill's own Piper Aztec plane had crashed into a screen of trees, virtually wiping out the Embassy Hill racing team, including 2 drivers and the manager. The plane burned out in minutes. Damon's mother, Bette, became hysterical, marking the end of the life they knew. The horror continued when it was revealed that the plane wasn't insured. Graham lacked the proper license and he had borrowed money, leaving his estate vulnerable and in a financial mess. The family lost their home and many possessions to auction. Damon admits he wished he had been on the plane, wishing he could have exchanged places with someone else. Years later, Damon and Georgie were living together when he returned from a trip and announced, "I'm going to race in Formula One and I'm going to become a world champion." This declaration came 8 years after his father's death. He started late, in his mid-20s, a decade too old by racing standards, and felt the weight of responsibility to support his family, especially his mother and sisters, and fill his father's shoes. He began in Formula Ford wearing his father's helmet. Damon struggled to rise, running out of money and facing the pressure of Georgie's pregnancy with their first baby. Desperate for a job to pay the mortgage, he accepted a role as the test driver for Williams, a top Formula One team. Test drivers rarely got the main slot, but Damon impressed the team principal Frank Williams and technical director Patrick Head with his professionalism and consistent donkey work on the track. He was tasked with pushing the cars, including Nigel Mansell's, to their limits. At the end of the season, a contract dispute meant that the second driver's seat at Williams was suddenly empty, putting Damon in line for the best drive in F1. The decision was to be made at a test in Portugal. Damon vividly recalls his frantic race to catch the flight, battling through traffic and nearly leaving his car behind, only to realize the date was November 29, the day his father died. He felt an intense need to succeed. He got the drive. Frank Williams announced that Damon would be a regular driver for the team, with the simple primary requirement to not crash the car and secure points for the Constructors' Championship. Damon's debut in the 1993 season was set against the return of 3-time champion Alain Prost, his teammate, and Ayrton Senna. Damon felt he was on a very thin ledge due to his late start and inexperience. His first race saw him spin out, confirming the doubts of those who thought Frank Williams had made a mistake. His confidence was conditional on his performance. At the same time, Damon and Georgie faced the challenge of their first child, Oliver, being born with a learning disability. This new responsibility hardened Damon's resolve. Damon began to prove himself, getting closer to Prost's pace, sometimes quicker. He was, however, often told to back off to allow Prost, the lead driver, to pass. Damon eventually earned the right to win at his home race, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, a race his father never won. While leading his engine blew, denying him his first victory. He finished third in the championship, but his strong performance led Williams to sign the legendary Ayrton Senna to partner him for the 1994 season. Damon saw this as a definitive test of his ability to see how he measured up against one of the greatest drivers in the same car. The 1994 season brought a ban on electronic driver aids like traction control and active suspension, making the cars significantly harder to drive. Senna struggled, spinning out of the first 2 races, while there were mounting suspicions that the rival Benetton team led by Michael Schumacher might still be using illegal traction control. The championship arrived in Europe for the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Damon describes a pregnant feel and a thundercloud hanging over the race. Before the race, a relaxed Senna entered Damon's motorhome. In a surprisingly personal conversation, Senna spoke about his love for his nephews and reassured Georgie, via Damon, that their Williams team was a great, safe team that would look after him. Senna then walked out, got in his car, and that was the last Damon saw of him alive. The race began, and on lap 6 Damon saw Senna plunge off the track. The radio communications confirmed it was serious. Williams, worried about what had caused the accident, told Damon to run the race without power steering as a precaution. Damon was upset, knowing the terrible implications of the crash. Still on the track at Imola following the news of Ayrton Senna's crash, Damon Hill was told to stay out despite the unfolding tragedy. When he eventually came into the garage, he witnessed the devastating moment. A team member delivered the news of Senna's death to Patrick Head. Damon felt an overwhelming sense of powerlessness. The journey back was one of silence and despair for the entire team, who were utterly drained. Damon initially refused to attend Senna's funeral but was strongly advised by Jackie Stewart, a close friend and contemporary of his father, that he would regret it. This felt like his father telling him what to do. Damon attended and helped carry the coffin, an emotionally grueling experience that dredged up the pain and fear he had felt at his own father's funeral. He understood that Senna's death was part of the brutal reality of the sport, a reality his father had also lived through, losing friends like Jim Clark. Despite the horror, Damon recognized that the only way to help the grieving Williams team was to provide the results they had worked for. He delivered an emotional victory at the Spanish Grand Prix, mirroring the win his father achieved after Jim Clark's death. This moment offered Damon a new understanding of his father's stoicism and ability to cope with extreme loss. Damon told the team he could still win the championship but felt undermined when Renault insisted on bringing back Nigel Mansell for key races to fill the big-name void left by Senna. Damon saw this as a vote of no confidence. At the British Grand Prix he secured pole position, infuriating his rival Michael Schumacher. Schumacher tried to play mind games, illegally overtaking Damon twice during the warm-up and restart, resulting in a penalty. Damon won the race, beginning to close the gap in the championship. The situation intensified when Mansell was brought back again for the Japanese Grand Prix. Damon felt the team was not fully behind him, as Mansell could potentially take points away from his championship challenge against Schumacher. A stern talk with Patrick Head led to a mental release. Damon decided to stop feeling obligated to the team and race for himself, finding a sense of freedom akin to his early days on motorbikes. Heading into the wet Japanese Grand Prix, Damon knew he had to beat Schumacher. He felt an almost spiritual intervention during the race. In his mind he called out to Senna for help and suddenly felt a non-conscious commitment to driving as fast as possible, as if visited by a spirit. Damon won, closing the gap to Schumacher to just 1 point, setting the stage for a final showdown. The 1994 Australian Grand Prix was the final race. The mathematics were simple: if neither finished, Schumacher won; if Damon finished ahead, Damon won. Schumacher, leading the race, made a mistake and ran wide, damaging his car as he scrabbled to get back on track. Damon saw his chance to pass. As Damon turned into the next corner, Schumacher deliberately turned in on him, forcing contact that damaged Damon's car and eliminated both drivers. Schumacher was crowned world champion. Frank Williams and Patrick Head, adhering to their stoic nature, did not formally complain, though the consensus was that Schumacher had executed a desperate, unsporting maneuver. The loss, combined with the stress of the Senna tragedy, left Damon drained and deeply on edge. He faced a new barrage of media scrutiny, including a full-page headline calling him a prat based on a rumored quote from his own team boss. Schumacher exacerbated this, displaying a dismissive confidence and suggesting Damon would only be acceptable on the same team as a second driver. Damon started to doubt himself, a crack that undermined his performance, leading to more on-track errors. He felt exposed and realized his natural inclination was not for the limelight his father had embraced. Graham Hill had pushed Damon, even gifting him a motorbike in front of cameras, creating a lifelong feeling of being pushed forward because you're the son of. Damon reflected on his own aggressive behavior, fueled by anxiety and anger, which led to a collision with Schumacher at Silverstone and another race-ending mistake at Suzuka, a dark period that plunged him into a depression. He finally understood that his life's effort since his father's death had been spent trying to put it back together again, feeling he had to go through this pain to put right everything that went wrong. He realized the truth: he couldn't go back and fix the past. He needed to let go to become his own person, not just an echo or a facsimile of his dad. By the start of the 1996 season, Damon had a new focus, thanks in part to the unwavering support of Georgie. He became practical and focused solely on his job. Schumacher had moved to Ferrari, and Damon's new younger competitive teammate was Jacques Villeneuve. Damon was now ready to fight, winning the first 3 races, equaling his father's career total of 14 Grand Prix wins. His mid-season momentum was broken when his future with Williams was abruptly terminated. Frank Williams informed him that for 1997 a German driver would replace him as part of a long-term plan with BMW engines. Despite being the championship leader, Damon was just a pawn in that game. Though momentarily rattled and making a mistake in the next race, he composed himself for the final race, the 1996 Japanese Grand Prix, where the title would be decided between him and Villeneuve. Damon had a brilliant start, passing Villeneuve immediately. With a clear head and 100% commitment, he dominated the race. When Villeneuve was forced to retire due to a lost wheel, the team informed Damon he was the world champion. Damon, concentrating intensely, showed no immediate reaction, only processing the news when he took the checkered flag. Crossing the line, he completed his decades-long mission. He won the Japanese Grand Prix and the Formula One World Championship, matching his father's achievement. The impact of the journey and the overwhelming sense of loss for his father hit him simultaneously, but in a curious way he felt that his dad does know. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.